Today we've got a crazy story of revenge of somebody finding out their husband has a mistress and ruining things for her. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, he has no idea I'm the reason he didn't get the job. Back in 2009, I was at a conference where I was introduced to a well-known established man in the same field as me. Our mutual friend introduced me as someone with over 10 years experience. I had recently completed a master's degree and was the only woman and the only person under 40 on a panel discussion at the conference. I extended my hand to shake his, and he turned away and sneered that he had more experience than I had years alive. I'd never met him before and have no idea why he held such animosity against me. Fast forward 15 years, I have a job in a large agency that hires contractors to complete some of our objectives that we lack capacity to do internally. He's been considered on several contracts, and I've told the story of his arrogance and how I won't work with him. He didn't get those contracts. He likely has no idea, and maybe he wouldn't care. Still feels good. Even if you're not like a social superstar or something, you want to be cordial. I mean, at the conference, you kind of want to like maintain networking and professional relationships and whatnot. I mean, I myself only barely dipped my toe in the idea of going to conferences and like intermingling with other people in the field, but I still knew not to be a total jerk about it. Goffle37 commented, "I'm a software developer, and at one time we were working on a small team doing great things. All of us were handpicked for this and worked together closely. All of us had a lot of experience, and part of that experience included having worked with jerks in the past. So we adopted a rule that when looking at a candidate, everyone on the team got a veto. Supposedly, this rule was put in place for SAS teams, where we got the idea. I exercised it once for a guy I'd worked with who was very talented on paper, but very obnoxious and divisive. Having him on the team would have ended us. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of revenge, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below?" That said, our next story is Condescending Colleague, I Cost Him His Desired Job. I work in admin in a private school. Some years ago, we had a new history teacher straight out of university who thought he was the universe's gift to education. And because I worked in admin, I was a lower form of life. He was condescending and quite often just plain rude. A few years later, he had moved schools. My boss was out of the office, so I picked up a call for him and was asked if he could give a reference for a former teacher who had applied to one of our city's most prestigious boys' schools. I asked who the reference was for so I could give my boss a heads up, and oh joy, it was the unpleasant ex-colleague. Before I could stop myself, I started to laugh. The very nice deputy head on the line asked me why. I told him I was prejudiced because of the way he treated me, but also said the history marks the years he taught at our school were the worst they had ever been. My boss came back later and phoned this man, and when asked if he would re-employ said person, said definitely not. Boss and I shared a good laugh about that one. Very similar vein as the first story, but this one is more of a reputation precedes themselves kind of situation. Like that person is just so bad at their job and such an awful person that it like permeates around them. OP probably wrinkled their nose up in disgust as they picked up the phone call because the wafts of this guy's aura were just coming through the phone secondhand. DNHS47 commented, "One company I worked for, back when all interviews were in person, before Skype, etc., included receptionists in the candidate interview process. They didn't interview the candidate per se, but were always asked about how the candidate interacted with them. I saw many candidates tagged no hire because of rude, unpleasant interactions with the receptionists. Who needs that in the workplace, right? There was even a clue in the "we'd like you to come for an interview" letter that their interview would begin upon arrival at our office. No one paid any attention to that though, so the receptionist saw and shared the candidate's true colors for better or worse. Our next story is Hospital Roommate Called Me Ugly, I Shut Her Up. When I was a sophomore in college, my appendix ruptured and I spent a couple of weeks in the hospital off and on dealing with various infections and surgery. During my first hospital stay, I shared a room with an older Russian woman who had just gotten a gastric bypass. I never said a word to her and just kind of kept to myself watching TV and chatting with my mom when she came to visit. I felt kind of bad that I had to walk my IV pole past her to use the bathroom because I didn't want to disturb her. So I tried to be as quiet as possible and limit the number of trips I made. This lady had the habit of talking really loudly on the phone to her daughter, and since she had heard me speaking English with my mom, I guess she assumed that I couldn't understand her. I had started learning Russian as a freshman, so I didn't understand everything she was saying, but I could gather bits and pieces. One night, she's on the phone with her daughter and she says something to the tune of, "I don't have the room to myself anymore. I'm sharing it with this girl and she's really ugly." Obviously, I didn't look great because I had a ruptured appendix and was just trying to stay alive at that point, and I didn't really care what she thought of me. It just irked me that she thought it was okay to talk trash about me to her daughter in front of me just because she thought I couldn't understand her. Plus, I was bored and wanted the satisfaction of making her eat her words. So the next time I was wheeling my IV pole past her to use the bathroom, I put on my sweetest smile and said in Russian, a polite "excuse me" in my best Russian accent. She didn't say anything to me, but she never called her daughter again while I was there because she knew I could understand her every witchy word. I've said it in the past, I love stories like these. If there was an entire subreddit dedicated to them, I would probably be popping in often just to enjoy them. Unfortunately, I don't know if it would make for a great video if we had nothing but these kinds of stories, because they are kind of all very similar. It's also kind of why I stopped doing "I don't work here" lady stories, because they're all just so similar. Aggressive Zinfidel commented, "I hope you also made unnecessary trips to the bathroom, and loudly." OP responded, "No unnecessary trips. I wish I had thought to be that petty, but I stopped policing myself and just went whenever I had to. Clickety-clackety IV pole, no longer attemptedly muted." Our next story is, after years of receiving Goodwill junk from my wealthy sister-in-law who never says thank you, I finally found the perfect revenge gift for my nephew that drove the whole family crazy. I think I just won the passive-aggressive gift-giving Olympics, and I need to share this victory with you all. The background: my sister-in-law lives the high life. She's a paralegal sitting on that fat trust fund, while my brother-in-law proudly brags about scamming his military disability benefits to pay for their mortgage. They're rolling in money. We're talking 8 cars, including a Land Rover, Porsche, and Tesla, living in prime Seattle real estate. Every holiday, my sister-in-law struts around with her latest designer bags from Louis Vuitton, Dior, and YSL. My gift-giving philosophy: I pour my heart into holiday gifts, starting with my shopping in August. I'm talking Anthropologie advent calendars, Nordstrom purses, and luxury beauty products for the ladies, plus cozy knits and golf gear for the guys. I always have a theme. This year was travel, and I follow one rule: if I wouldn't love receiving it myself, I don't give it. The thank you note saga: for 5 years since her baby shower, I haven't received a single thank you note. I even started gifting her thank you card sets with stamps. Subtle, right? She never got the hint. Meanwhile, their kid gets showered with FAO Schwartz toys, handcrafted wooden pieces, and Lego sets from us. Still no thanks. What we get in return: literal garbage. I'm not exaggerating. They give us Goodwill rejects, puzzles with missing pieces, and junky Disney knickknacks. Remember, these are people who own multiple luxury cars and designer bags. The sweet revenge: enter their spoiled nephew, my perfect accomplice. Each year, my mission became clear: find the loudest, most obnoxious, yet irresistibly cool toy possible. This summer, I struck gold in an outdoor market: pop guns that make the most incredible racket. The payoff: we skipped Seattle this year, best decision ever, but got the full report from Grandma, mother-in-law. The pop gun was such a hit, it became an issue. My nephew was so obsessed he wouldn't put it down. My sister-in-law's parents couldn't stand being in the same room and left after 15 minutes because of the noise. It was the only toy he cared about. I couldn't stop laughing when I heard this. Mission absolutely accomplished. Are those similar in any way to like the old school cap guns that I had as a kid? I remember being like 3-4 years old and my parents got me one for fun. Little revolver type thing, had about 6 shots, but I remember being blown away when they fired off and they were smoky, like you could smell the powder and it had a little spark to it. I'm assuming a pop gun is kind of different? Intrepid Quantity 760 commented, "Our grandson loves tornado sirens. For his last birthday, he got a small handheld crank tornado siren. It's loud." Mikesso replied, "Drums are also a good choice and have the cover of learning an instrument." Our next story is, "Cab driver rips me to shreds thinking I can't understand him, but I can." Obligatory, this happened several years ago, a few months after I'd moved to Chicago. I had moved there from Romania, where I'd been living and going to school. Love Romania, people are great. Drop what you're doing and visit. Anyway, while I was there, due to my living situation, I had to learn the language fast and thoroughly. Not many people around me spoke English, outside of the uni I was at. So fast forward to a few months after I arrived in Chicago, imagine my surprise when the driver of the Uber I had ordered appeared to have a Romanian name. The area had a lot of Eastern Europeans, so I guess it shouldn't have been so surprising. I was really excited to talk to him and make sure I wasn't getting rusty. Maybe make a friend. Up pulls the guy. I get in. He greets me, but he appears to be on the phone with a buddy/family member. So I just sit quietly in the back, listening in a bit. The person on the other end asks if the driver is getting off work soon. He responded with something like the following: "No, I still have a few hours left, then I'll go home. Right now I have someone in the car. God, I hate this country. The women here are so fat and ugly. At least this one has a nice chest, but why can't she lose some weight?" And he goes on and on about all the problems with me and the other American women. Now, I've always been a bit on the chunky side, and you best believe the Romanians loved to comment on it, so I was used to it. But I was a bit shocked that this guy was going off like that. Anyway, I'm just kind of sitting bemused in the back seat as we near my destination. Then I tell him, in Romanian with all my might, trying to pull off the distinct accent of the region I'd been living in, "Can you just pull over there, on the right?" I swear this guy's head did the Exorcist girl head move, and he turned a shade of red I've seen nowhere else in nature. He didn't say anything, just pulled over. When I got out, I said thanks and added, "You're not attractive, and you're also fat, so maybe you shouldn't make comments like that." I have never again reached such levels of self-pride. First of all, let me clarify that I didn't go out of my way to look for very similar stories here, it just kind of happened that way. I'm assuming what happened is one person posts their story, it reminds somebody else of theirs, and we get similar stories coming out at around the same time. That said, I still love the type of story. Stories like this make me want to learn a second language just so I can be equipped for when this situation inevitably never happens for me, but still. Grimall1 commented, "This hits home for me. I'm a middle-aged white American who looks very much like my Irish ancestors, but I'm also fluent in Spanish and Haitian Creole. I'm a social worker, so I interview families nearly every day, and one thing I look for is a form of domestic violence called coercive control. Sometimes you'll have one partner who's fluent in English and uses that to control the other partner, and when I suspect that, I'll only speak in English and listen to what the couple says to each other while I look on, pretending I don't understand. Then, just a few minutes before I leave, I'll start speaking their language and watch their faces as they realize I understood them. This makes future visits much more productive." Our next story is, "Their own kids accidentally helped me get petty revenge against my sister-in-laws. I was a semi-professional baker when I met hubby. Not because I tried to be, but because every weekend, friends or family would pay me to make cakes, pies, cookies. My specialties are cheesecakes and cakes with surprises in them. After moving to his hometown, right before our first Christmas here, I'd already gotten all the ingredients for a Christmas cake that was all of our favorite, and was telling his sisters how excited I was to make this cake and how the farmer I found had some of the best fruits I'd ever seen. They told me not to bother and they'd get store-bought. They do this with a lot of things. Only with me though, if one of their friends offers to bring the same thing they've already turned me down for, it would be rude to refuse. Y'all, the bought cake was rock hard and awful. The kids literally made fun of it and asked if we could saw it into bricks to make a bread brick house. Fast forward a few years, and my husband bragged about my baking to so many people that my semi-pro kitchen is back to rolling along. We watch my sister-in-law's kids, and they bake with me sometimes. We still get the same store-bought Christmas cake for the family get-together. No one eats it. Yesterday, the family was together for a situation regarding my parents-in-law, so we decided to hash out the Christmas plans. We are hosting, so I said I would take care of all of the food, and they can bring dessert. The oldest kid kicked up immediately complaining why we have to get that awful cake every year, and why couldn't I make something for dessert too? My husband responded immediately telling the kiddo that her mom and auntie prefer the cake from the store. Kiddo looked at mom, then her aunt, then her mom, back to my husband and said, "Well, they can't even cook. They shouldn't get to pick what we have to eat." But I shut her down and said that they really liked that cake and that we needed to respect the traditions that made them feel more at home. My true revenge is planting the seed of anti-exclusionary traditionalism in their offspring, but I'm making that kid whatever cake she wants next time we watch her for that wicked burn. Bless those kids for being so darn polite, all things considered. I mean, they could have gone full-blown and said, "But that store-bought cake absolutely sucks and you can't pick a good cake to save your life." I find it a lot more diplomatic that they're saying, well, they can't cook, so why should they get to pick what we eat? Like, at least it's going down a more hypocritical route rather than just straight up, "Your guys' choices suck." Snowbunny1230 commented, "Those kids deserve special individual serving cakes that they do not have to share, while their parents eat the store-bought cake." OP responded, "I was thinking individual cheesecakes with their favorite flavors." Our next story is, Senior Boy wouldn't stop abusing me, so I chucked his entire accumulative end-of-year report in the trash, causing him to fail. The title pretty much spells it out. The year I was a senior in high school, I was in the journalism class, writing and illustrating monthly for the newspaper. I was a neurospicy weirdo then, as I am a neurospicy weirdo now, and thus an easy target as the lowest rung within the social hierarchy of teens. This one boy in the journalism class was horrible. He would regularly call me names, poke at my appearance, spit in my hair, trip me as I walked by, openly got others to laugh my way, constantly and loudly belittled my work. He wouldn't stop. As we neared the end of the semester, with graduation a few weeks away, we had a huge final coming up. An accumulated folder that needed to include every single piece of work we had completed over the year. Absent work took off points. No work meant a fail. After a particularly crappy day of boy picking on me again, I was the last person in class, ready to close up for the day when I spotted his folder in our class workstation. I had been wondering how I could stick up for myself, or get him back, and there was the answer right in front of me. Completely not fully premeditated, I stuffed his folder in my bag, walked out of the classroom, and then chucked it in the dumpster that was behind the nearby Starbucks. Without his folder, plus his general slack-off behavior, he failed the course and had to take summer classes to make up for the lost communications credit. Is it weird that the very last thing that OP mentioned is the thing that tripped me up the most? Communications credit. At least where I went to school, there was no communications credit. I mean, shoot, somehow I got away without even taking a foreign language class. I would have figured you would have needed at least one of those. I remember in my senior year, I was taking marine science to help round out my science credits. CreepyT247 commented, "I kind of did the opposite of this in high school. I didn't work on my final at all. I was just over it. We had to store our work in an unlocked filing cabinet with everyone having a tab inside for the papers listed by last name. When it was time to turn it in, I just pretended it was missing. My teacher agreed. He said he had seen me working hard on it all year. I don't know what he thought he remembered, but it wasn't me working. He agreed that it wasn't fair that someone would hide my work, so he gave me a B. Medieval Hag replied, "Knew someone who did this in college. She had to put her binder in the office of the professor. She went into the office and pretended to leave a binder. Then, when she was told she didn't turn one in, she swore she did and that it must have been lost. I saw this guy's office. It was a mess. Stacks of binders everywhere. I moved and transferred schools that summer and lost touch with her. I've wondered if she got away with it." Our next story is, "Don't like my calendar? Say goodbye to family pics." I had a boss who tried really hard to be one of the guys to our faces and then tried to get several of us fired by petty complaints. One rule in the business was that no pictures were allowed in workspaces. He targeted me due to my age and went after my astronomical calendar by an anonymous complaint to HR. We watched him taking pictures of our work areas, so it wasn't really anonymous. HR sent me a copy of the calendar and said, even though no individuals are depicted, ... So I put up a calendar of quotes from famous people on their birthdays. We saw him snapping pics like a tourist, and sure enough, HR contacted me to tell me that since no one was depicted and the writing was small, it was okay. That evening, I walked into his office and snapped pictures of his office with the 12 different images of his wife and kids and dropped the printed copies at HR with his name tag in the picture. You would think we had removed a kidney without anesthesia. He boxed them up and literally cried at the injustice of it all. Best revenge of all was seeing him get fired for some of the same antics. I lasted until full retirement and get to laugh about it. What kind of moronic rule or what kind of field does OP work in where you can't have faces in pictures or any pictures with any other human being in them in your workspace? If you get like a seasonal calendar and there happens to be like one kid frolicking through a field or something, that's applicable for what, a write-up to HR? What about animals? What if I have a picture of my dog on my desk? Is HR gonna write me up for that? Rockabelle42 commented, had an HR rep do similar crap. She was the second in command of HR and sent out a big long email about all that was or was not allowed. And the one that killed me was, no personal pictures as your company email photo. She sent this email from her work email and, to no one's surprise, she had a photo of herself on some porch on a beach as her work email photo. Wow, Donna, just wow. Neither of us are at that company anymore, but I will never not laugh at the rules for thee, not for me attitude from her. Our next story is, you bugged my car? Now you'll have to listen to what I think about you. A petty divorce tale. This gem of a story unfolded over the past few days, and I think it's too hilarious not to share. Not in the US or any other English-speaking country. I have a friend, let's call her Lisa. She's in her 50s, has been married forever, and has spent way too much of that time putting up with her nightmare of a husband. Lisa had thought about divorcing him more times than she can count, but she always hesitated because she knew he would turn the process into a living heck. Well, 2 months ago, Lisa finally snapped. She decided it was time to break free and filed for divorce. Cue her husband, let's call him Todd the Terrible, immediately proving her right by going full-on paranoid spy mode. First, he installed surveillance cameras all over their house, which unfortunately is technically legal in our country as long as he's living there too, but Lisa's pretty sure he also planted some illegal listening devices because, get this, that's the exact advice he gave his brother during his own divorce. As if that wasn't creepy enough, Todd took her car for 2 days because it's the family car. He never uses the family car as he's got his own car, saying that right after she handed him the divorce papers. Plenty of time to slap on a GPS tracker or a few bugs, right? His excuse for all this James Bond level nonsense? He claims Lisa is cheating. Spoiler alert, she is not. But here's the kicker, in my country, divorce means splitting everything 50-50 regardless, unless something truly extreme comes up. So even if Lisa were sneaking off to rendezvous with the entire team of the Kansas City Chiefs, it wouldn't change a thing. Todd's tantrum is entirely pointless. Now, Lisa doesn't have the time or money to check her car for gadgets, and the whole situation is understandably frustrating. So I suggested the perfect petty revenge, turning his creepy surveillance obsession against him. Now, when she's in the car, she regularly puts on a show, loudly announcing gems like, "Your Richard is so small that you need a microscope to find what you're working with. You're the worst hooking up I've ever had, and I've had bad hooking up. I feel sorry for your future dates. They'll need a search party to find any satisfaction." She's tried it a few times now and tells me it's more satisfying than therapy. I mean, in a way, kind of like therapy. It's kind of venting and letting that frustration out. Maybe it's not the most constructive thing, but I mean, when you feel like you're being surveilled 24/7, you gotta let it out somehow, I guess. Sumo Ninja 17 commented she's gotta find that tracker and get it on a cross-country truck or an ocean-going ship. Huggy Monster 69 replied, I went to uni right near a truck stop. Always found the drivers willing to take tracking devices off our hands. Klutzy Excitement 99 replied, why do you make that sound like a regular everyday occurrence? That's not normal. Not normal. This next story is 10 or less items turns into a full cart? I'll catch you outside. I was 30-something, and a 40-something was in front of me in the supermarket, 10 items or less line. She had like 15 to 20 items, and I pointed out that she was in the wrong line. She brushed me off and said, it's just a little longer wait. Her 2 children start bringing items up and going back out for more. I'm ticked off, and so are those behind me. By the time the family's finished hunting and gathering enough to fill a cart, she looks at me and says, it wasn't so bad, was it? Even the cashier was annoyed. I pay for my 5 items and see them loading up their multiple bags in the trunk. I wait as they get in the car and park directly behind them. About 30 seconds go by and I hear her horn toot. I wave at them. A very long minute ticks past. She gets out and walks to me and says, we need to leave, can you move? I said, no, I can't, sorry. She starts getting irritated and I cut her off by saying, it's just a little longer wait. She then realizes I was behind her in line. I said, I guess my car isn't done sitting in park. You're just gonna have to wait for me to be finished. She went back to her car and I felt so satisfied I sat for 7 minutes. She came out again, twice, and I rolled up the window on her and just played on my phone. It was annoying yet awesome to watch the seconds slowly creep. I felt quite vindicated when her tone got angry. After a good 8 minutes total, I let her leave with a smile on my face. I'm just glad for OP that this didn't turn into one of those confrontations gone bad. The Karen goes into their trunk and pulls out that shopping bag full of canned beans or whatever needless thing they purchased and turn around and slam it on your hood or your windshield or something. Or God forbid she goes and gets her keys and starts keying your car or some nonsense. I mean, somebody who does that with their kids in tow and tells their kids, go on kids, bring some more stuff over, still shopping mid-checking out, I wouldn't put it past them that they would start just keying or attacking your car for not moving. Blind Dump Bob commented, rarely will management support a cashier telling them to move to another line, and rarely will anyone shame them into moving. But I did it once and it was amazing. After watching Karen load 30 plus items in a 15 or fewer line, the cashier asked politely, which of these 15 are you buying today? Sith Happen 7654 replied, I once heard someone in front of me say to the person in front of them, who had well more than 10 items, well, you're the reason America is ranked so bad in math because you sure as heck can't count to 10 even. Our next story is, husband's mistress was rude to me, so I ruined her favorite thing twice. A few years ago, I found out my now ex-husband was having multiple affairs. I contacted the woman in an attempt to figure out what was going on, timelines, etc. Most of the women were lovely, and I held no contempt or anger for them. They were victims of lies and deception too. But one woman took a different approach. She was rude and abusive, accusing me of being controlling, frigid, fat. I'm only one of those things, and it's not frigid, etc. Unfortunately, she was in Ireland and we were in Australia, so no chance to confront her. I tried to just move on and deal with my real problems, but I couldn't shake the audacity. So I looked up her socials. She was hard out obsessed with Australian MasterChef. Obsessed. Being a fan myself, I knew that the show was aired and concluded in Oz before it was shown in Ireland. So I screenshot the winning dish and mentioned her in a tweet containing the details of the winner and the runner-up and the winning dish photo. Then I set an alarm in my phone and did the exact same thing 1 year later. After the second spoiler, she put her Twitter account on private. You know what I love about this revenge? Her putting her Twitter account on private does nothing to stop OP from adding them. Once they churn out yet another season of Australian MasterChef, OP can be right back up there on Twitter, adding this lady and giving them the exact same details again. It honestly doesn't even take that much effort. You just pull up the episode, skip to the end, screenshot it, and send it their way. Now you just won't get the extra satisfaction of seeing if they've publicly responded to it. Jaime Shambles commented, memory unlocked. In high school, there was this girl that was so mean to me because I was kind of dating her on and off again boyfriend while they were off, and this was in the age of AOL Instant Messenger. Her away message said she was reading the 6th Harry Potter book, so I sent her a message saying, "Dumbledore dies." I'm proud of teenage me for that one. ETA, this was when the book just came out too, so I definitely ruined it for her. Spill the Tea replied, "This reminds me of Howie Mandel. He did this interview where he spoke about this lady next to him on a plane that was annoying him, who was very involved with the book during the flight. When she left to use the restroom, he tore out the last page so she wouldn't be able to finish it." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy revenge story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.